Hello, welcome to the first episode of Album Musings for 2023. So for this episode we're going back 40 years. It's actually 40 years to the day, because when this video goes out, it's going to be the 4th of January 2023. So 4th of January 1983 was the release date of Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. So second studio album by the Eurythmics, released on RCA Records. They're a synth pop and new wave band. I wasn't really listening to them that much at the time. They were being played on the radio, or they ended up getting played on the radio, and we'll talk a little bit about how they took off around the time of this album. But at that point I was listening more to hard rock and new wave of British heavy metal, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this episode and the other sort of stuff that I was up to at the time. So this is their simplified discography, just looking at the album-based releases. So they had an album prior to Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, In the Garden, that came out in 81, and then it was really from this point onwards that they really hit their stride. The album itself, there's 10 tracks. There were 4 singles released off of this album. This is The House, The Walk, Love Is a Stranger, and Sweet Dreams Are Made of This. It's really this one where everything just locked in, and we will be talking about that in a moment. They're a duo around Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox. So you can see it doesn't really mention the musicians here, because as far as I know, Dave Stewart handled everything from that point of view. There's a number of additional producers on the album and engineers, and we also got some guest vocals on track 3. Frontman of the band, Scritti Politti. There was a video album around this period as well. You can see chart-wise the albums did pretty well. Number 3 in the UK charts, number 15 on the Billboard 200, 18 on the US rock charts, 36 on the R&B and hip-hop album charts. Made a number of end-of-year lists to do with the charts. And then certification-wise, again, a bit of disparity here with units and the regions, but we've seen that in every video before. So difficult to draw parallels in different countries in terms of the certifications, but you can get a rough idea of the certified units or the sales from here. And you can see the big difference here between going platinum in Canada and going platinum in the UK versus just going gold in the US. On Album of the Year, this is the popularity order based on their sort of voting and stats and scores. So it's bubbled to the top of the pile. I would expect probably to see these 3 albums high up here. You know, this really was their ascendant period. Looking at the UK charts and just the band's popularity generally on the charts. So as of when this video goes out, they've had 3 UK number 1s, this is albums I'm talking about, 9 top 10s, 12 top 40s, 12 in the top 75, 13 weeks at number 1, 95 weeks in the top 10, 276 in the top 40, and 454 in the top 75. Singles wise, 1 UK number 1, 9 in the top 10, 24 in the top 40, 29 in the top 75. 1 week at number 1, 33 weeks in the top 10, 136 weeks in the top 40, and 212 in the top 45. At this point, I primarily want to look at the album overall, and so we can get a feel for how well things were starting to go for them. So here's this week's album we're going to be looking at. This was their top, their first number 1 album was the Eurythmics Touch. So next album from that, so that would be their third album. It looks like their first album, In the Garden, didn't chart at all. And then this is interesting. So around this time in the early 80s, a number of bands were releasing either dance, like whole albums of dance tracks, dance remixes. Off the top of my head, I'm just trying to think now of the bands that did it. Oh, the Pet Shop Boys. In fact, yeah, Pet Shop Boys did it. Madonna was doing it. Human League did it. And there's lots of dance remixed albums kicking around that were remixes of a previous album. That was a big thing. And then you can sort of see, their album popularity here. And then just quickly looking at the singles. So they had this track, which I'm assuming is off the first album. We'll take a look at that. As we scroll down, you can sort of see which particular tracks from the Eurythmics, got into the top 10. Definitely, we seem to have a concentration around this period. So late 82 into 83. Looking at the album itself and how long it took to get up the charts, so we saw then it was released in early 83 and took a while to hit the charts, probably about a month before it even got on the charts, and then got to number 3 in March, so easily a couple of months there before it got to its peak position, and it slowly rolled out the charts, ending up out at the end of the year, and then came back in again in 84, and then back out, and so on. And then we didn't see it again until 91. There's probably like a greatest hits or something that coincides with that. I'm trying to remember if that would coincide with the Freddie Mercury thing or not. So that big outdoor gig where Annie Lennox appeared. So the week the album is the top of the charts, we've got the Hurting at number 1, Thriller, which we spoke about last year when I did a Albums Musing episode on that. But what's interesting I find in this period is we've got quite a bit of crossover. So we've got a number of bands that are popular off the back of Nwubum, and they're still making the charts. So we've got Marillion, their debut album, Script for a Jester's Tear. We've got the last Thin Lizzy album, studio album with Phil Lynott. Released while he was still alive, Power and the Glory by Saxon. We got OMD, Duran Duran. So it's a real mix by Phil Collins with Hello I Must Be Going, Lionel Richie. So, yeah, when you look at I always smile when I see this period in the UK charts, album charts, because just the diversity here. Echo and the Bunnymen, Fun Boy 3, Dire Straits, Bad Out of Hell still in the charts. Upstairs at Eric's by Yazoo. There's a soundtrack album here at number 40. And we've got Pyromania, which I'm sure we're going to talk about on a future episode. So that's the the album aspect of this in terms of the album charts. Looking at individual singles, so we've got a run of singles here which didn't make the charts at all, and these were released prior to the album being released. So we have This Is the House, April 82, so not quite a year before the album, 9 months before the album came out. Doesn't chart in the UK. Oh, and just as an aside here, because I looked it up, CDs, they were sort of coming in 82 as well, just to bear that in mind. And we had a second single, The Walk, didn't chart in the UK. Love Is a Stranger also didn't chart. So 2nd of April, 18th of June, these are all 82 by the way, 8th of November 82, all prior to the album coming out. Now I'm saying this, okay, just to clarify here, one clarification. So Love Is a Stranger did get in the top 54, but it didn't make the top 40. So it did get on the charts. However, it was re-released and it got to number 6 in 83, which is why when we looked here, you'll see that this is above this, and it makes it look like this was their first, top 10. But this is where you have to be careful of the statistics. You have to drill down, and you'll discover that actually didn't happen until here. So this was the initial run of the third single. So what it did get in the top 75, it didn't get in the top 40. So I sort of misspoke there, I suppose, saying it didn't chart. It didn't chart in the top 40. And of course, at that point, I would have had no clue about the top 75 anyway, and most times you didn't. But as it did ultimately make the charts, I decided I would talk about it. So I didn't get in until after. So it was released before the next single, but didn't. Oops, sorry. There we go. Yeah. So it was released way before the album came out, before Sweet Dreams. I believe the single was released, because the single came out in January, around about the time of the album, just after it. But of course it gained popularity because the following single did so well. But let's just look here, because I'm always curious as to when you get these delayed runs, so later in the year, what it was alongside. So when this third single did end up getting into the top 10, or even just into the top 40, gets to number 6, And we've got alongside Let's Dance, Church of the Poison Mind, Beat It. You'll recognise, tracks here from albums I've spoken about last year. True by Spandau Ballet. This is something I should know. Blue Monday by New Order. Fields of Fire by Big Country. So 83, they were starting to get popular. We've got Twisted Sister. So again, we've still got spin-offs from the popularity of Nawubum in the UK charts. We've got Bauhaus. I wanted to talk a little bit about Bauhaus towards the end. Iron Maiden in the charts. So there we have it. So moving on to the single that really broke them. So Sweet Dreams Are Made of This, same name as the album. We've got, here you can see, hits the charts on the 12th of the 2nd, 1983, was released on the 21st of January 1983, so the previous month, goes up the charts, gets to number 2, and this is what, broke them, if you like. And then as a result of that, the previous single, as we've seen, gets into the charts. It doesn't have any effect on the singles prior to that. So what was this alongside? So 13th of March 1983. So a little bit earlier than this one. This was April, the one we previously looked at with the delayed response. Total Eclipse of the Heart. There it is, number 2. Billie Jean. Style Council were big around that time. Orange Juice, Rip It Up. Spandau Ballet, Communication. Kajagoogoo. So there's a lot of new romantic bands around there. We've got bands like Ice House as well. Bucks Fizz, who were big off the back of the Eurovision Song Contest. Tears for Fears, Depeche Mode, Ultravox, and so on. Altered Images. There's Blue Monday by New Order. So that did pretty well in the charts, and that was a popular dance track as well. Japan were also around in the charts of that period. So I thought it'd be nice to just follow on with that and look at the charts, to try and get my head round what was going on in my life in terms of what music I was listening to, but also a few other things. So I've managed to find a picture of this. I was amazed I found this on the internet. So in 1981, I started my first job. I've probably mentioned it before. I worked initially in a prep lab for in vitro diagnostic kits that was attached to a manufacturing plant. And I used to be involved in the preparation of the various reagents and solutions that were used in manufacturing. And then at some point between what I would say, well, it was probably 82, I moved into immunology. In parallel with that, I'd been sent to college one day a week, well, one day and one evening, to do an ONC in chemistry. And even though I moved into immunology, that was applicable to what I was doing, because I was doing a lot of prep work for solutions when I worked in immunology. And then when I finished my 2 years doing my ONC, which would have been at the end of, March of 83, March, maybe April 83. I'm trying to think when the college year ends actually in the UK. But anyway, roundabout. So just after this, when this album came out, I would have just finished college as well. That like I was being sent to as what they call day release in the UK, which my wife always laughs about. Makes it sound like you're in a open prison or something, but that's what they call it. And so then September of 83, I then studied in Brighton, and I was doing my biochemical techniques HNC. So there's a lot going on in that period, and it was my first job was so I've started 81. I started the job in May of 81. So I'm 1 and a bit years into the job, and already working in immunology. I'd had a couple of promotions, I think, because there was always this standard thing of, after working there for 1 year, you went from being a junior tech to a senior tech and stuff like that. So I remember buying one of these. So this is an Amstrad stereo system. It cost me £100 at the time, or $99.99. Had tape to tape, did metal tapes, and I used to use this to record the Friday rock show. But yeah, I was trying to place it when I thought about this at the start of putting this episode together, what was I buying at that time? Because I don't remember having much money, and I was definitely starting to buy albums. Like, what were my major purchases? And this was my first big purchase. And it's strange because I'm trying to think how I got this home. Because I'm not sure at that point. At this point I didn't have a car. So, not sure. I mean, I'm assuming my dad may have helped me, but I was pretty independent back then. And I may have even took the bus to Crawley and actually carried it home on the bus, or carried it to the bus and then from the bus home. It's quite possible that I did that, actually. So music-wise, I was just trying to place, because I wasn't listening actively to the Eurythmics. It was more passively, like, what was I buying? And I was looking at the tail end of the year, and nothing really sprang out at me at the tail end. But then I thought there was a lag. Things like this, Kiss in the Dream House, I didn't really start listening to a lot of Banshees until a bit later. And then I sort of started off with the older albums. Same with Grace Jones. It wasn't until later that I really started going and buying Grace Jones albums. Saints and Sinners was out, didn't buy that. The senior tech that I was working under was a big Led Zepp fan, and I remember him getting really excited when Coda came out. But I think it might have been this one, Speak of the Devil, the Ozzy album, that I would have purchased around this time. So this is, like I say, just before the album comes out, November, December. It makes a little bit more sense when I look at the months around and just after. So now I start to recognise more things that I was buying. It might be that in 82 I was buying slightly more obscure albums that didn't make the charts. But Pyromania, I'll be doing an episode on that. Live Evil by Black Sabbath came out. I remember buying that when it came out. So both of these two I remember coming out. Never Surrender by Triumph. My middle brother probably still is, I don't know. I'm not sure if he still listens to Triumph, but he was a big Triumph fan. I remember hearing this on the Friday Rock Show, Frontiers by Journey. I don't think I bought that at the time. I remember they were playing this as well, Making Contact by UFO. War by U2 came out in February. First Rock Goddess album. Didn't listen to it. Took me a little while to get into U2, actually. It wasn't until probably the following year, maybe 83 into 80, even as late as 84. Yeah, 84. Yeah, because we're talking here about 83 now, aren't we? So yeah. So probably not till 84. And again, that was as a recommendation from the same person that was into Led Zeppelin, actually. And yeah, I'll probably end up doing an episode about Thin Lizzy once we get into March. Definitely bought that when it came out. Oh yeah, my brother had this. So if we sort of cross compare that with when it's March, so yeah, this would have been what I would have been listening to when they were in the ascendancy, when the Eurythmics were in the ascendancy. Didn't buy this until a lot later. I wasn't a big Marillion fan initially. I wasn't listening to a lot of prog at that time. I just brought up 93 as well because it looks like for January, for the episodes in January, I'm probably gonna be mainly talking about albums from 83 and 93 in January. So certainly I want to cover Pyromania and trying to decide what else to do. But I was looking at 93 and definitely Star's Belly is a good contender as well. I'm trying to keep a spreadsheet here, so yeah, there might be. I think I was going to do a bit of a cheat here, well, not so much a cheat, but there was a possibility of an album I was going to cover from 73, which is Heartbreaker. So I might well go back to 73 as well for one of the choices. Yeah, as well. So, and then finally, I just wanted to make another point about CDs. So, I mean, I didn't buy any CDs until well into the 90s, but they were introduced in 82 in Japan, so that would have been the previous year to when Sweet Dreams came out. I'm sure in the comments section someone will be able to inform me of the first album that came out on CD. But I don't know if it's going to tell me in here necessarily. Yep, so if you do know, you don't have to do a ton of research. I would be curious as to what it was that was the first album to appear on CD. Was it a new album? Was it an old album? My gut instinct tells me if it's an older album, then it's probably something by Pink Floyd. So yeah, but if anybody knows, then yeah, please comment, because my brain has gone blank. I'm sure I knew it at some point. So thanks once again for watching. Bye for now, and I will catch you in the next episode.